Welcome to Holistic Human Performance Podcast. My name is Gena Bradshaw, where we talk all things holistic health, wellness, spirituality, fitness, meditation, energetics, and so much more to help you become the healthiest version of yourself. Let's dive in. This is not medical advice. This is simply to help you on your journey through health, fitness, and wellness. I hope this helps. You can complement this with anything that you are doing currently in your life. Enjoy. Ever find it super difficult to integrate these holistic tools and modalities, and you really just don't know where to start? Well, I got you covered. It's been a long time coming, and it's finally gotten to this place where I can really be wherever and whenever you need me to be. And that's why I created the Holistic Human Performance Virtual Wellness Center. The cool part about this wellness center is you can take me wherever, whenever you need, filled with meditations, nutrition coaching, exercises, workouts, online courses, all of these things you get in this virtual wellness center. Because let's be real, sometimes it's challenging to be able to integrate these tools and know what to do with them. And not only that, if you are a one-on-one coaching client with me, you have automatic access to this entire virtual wellness center so that you have the tools to do it on your own. And guess what? You're getting a 5-day free trial. So you can find that at www.holistichumanperformance.co/academy. Go get your 5-day free trial. Try it out. Let us know what you think. Enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Holistic Human Performance Podcast. My name is Gena Bradshaw. Vitali now. Just got married, so I got to get used to saying that. And today we have a very special guest with us. We have Leah Guy. Oh, man. I mean, her story, everything she does is so aligned with what we speak about here on the podcast. She is a 3-time author. She is a new thought leader and expert in emotional healing and personal development. Some of her books, her most recent one, Overcoming Toxic Emotions, a practical guide to building better relationships with yourself and others. She uses her personal triumphs over sexual abuse, addiction, anxiety, and eating disorders, along with more than 2 decades of experience in private practice, working with clients and organizations to help people transform their lives, and so much more. Leah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yes. So, all right, let's go back. Talk to me about your journey of just these, because you've gone through some things at a very young age, and this can be very inspiring, motivating for people who are just going through it at a really young age. I also relate to you, just in a different form of trauma, going through it at a young age and kind of just feeling so hopeless and like you don't have anyone to turn to and nobody understands. So talk to us a little bit about your story and your journey and kind of what led you here.
Sure. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think a lot of people, we're going through life and we're young and it's just our life. And so at the time, there's nothing we can even pinpoint to say what's wrong. We don't have the emotional intelligence to say what's wrong. We don't know any of the realities to identify what could be better or something may be off. And I just want to remind people that the definition that I go by of trauma, that I think a lot of trauma specialists go by, is any event or situation that's too overwhelming to process in the moment. And so, my parents divorcing, was that a trauma? Well, and is according to that definition I just gave, yes, because at 10 years old, 11 years old, it was something too overwhelming. For another person that's had a specific, what we would call like a big T trauma, like a one-time life event thing, we don't compare traumas. And that's the thing. We have to stop looking at our lives and diminishing it or making it bigger than other people's and somehow trying to size everything up. That's just the judgmental mind trying to assign value and worth and are we okay to everything. But yes, when I was young, so my parents did divorce. My aunt was murdered the same year that my parents divorced.
Wow.
Yeah. I developed an anxiety disorder. There were people in my household that had anxiety issues, and also started learning negative coping skills, like how to kind of brush things under the rug, how to smoke to alleviate problems, how to ignore our pain and that kind of thing. And so and then I developed an eating disorder as part of that as well. Um, the the event when I was in my young 20s that kind of brought me to my healing crisis, if you will, was the sexual assault, the rape
Mm.
situation. Because by that point, I was so kind of overwhelmed with all the other things of the past 10 years I didn't really know how to deal with, and I wasn't dealing with healthily. And so after that situation, that's when I sought um, what at the time we would call alternative help, and how I learned about energy medicine and
What was
actually.
I just want to pause you there. What was like that breakthrough moment that kind of led you into that door of like energy medicine and seeking out help?
Well, when I was younger, I feel very fortunate that as a young girl, I was very connected to spirit
Mm.
and my spirituality. And it was kind of an anchor for me, like talking to angels, seeing energy, that kind of stuff. Of course, I didn't know at the time what was going on, but it was a solace for me, and a companion for me. So I was always very interested in spirituality and wellness. So I kind of had a knowing of a higher vibration, a higher way, a knowing of love and support. But even though it wasn't really always active in my life, but the turning point or that breakthrough, honestly, was a friend of mine in California. I had been a missionary between two of my college, in the summer of two of my college years in Lake
Mm.
Tahoe. It's not a very like, it sounds like, oh, you went to Lake Tahoe to be a missionary, but I did. We went, I taught children. I lived with all these other college people. And so I made this one woman friend, and she's still a sister, to this day, and she knew everything about my life and what was going on. And I was sharing with her after the rape. I was like, I'm just not okay. I'm doing the
Yeah.
antidepressants, I'm doing the therapy, I've started the yoga, I'm doing the hypnotherapy, like I'm doing everything, alternative and regular therapy. And she said, I want you to take a look at this school in San Diego. And now I was living in California at the time. I mean, no, in Kentucky at the time. And so this school, which does not exist anymore, everyone always asked me, it was called the School of Enlightenment and Healing. And I went there for myself, but I went there also to learn. And it was at that place. I mean, it was just, that's all we did. We did intensive weeks of meditation and learning how to channel and learning about energy and studying the mind and the body and how they relate and everything about our whole system. And so I discovered there for myself that, oh, I can receive this. This is actually reaching me and was helping me while I was also learning to help other people. So from there, then I went to a massage school also in San Francisco, not to really learn massage, although I did do massage for a while, but I learned nutrition and more study on energy healing and more study on chronic pain and more study on trauma and so forth. So between all of that education, if you will, and that was the process of me healing and also the process of me learning to heal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is amazing because it was like that inner voice within you that kind of guided you to not only help yourself, but also learn at the same time so you can help people. You really, that's where integration comes in as well. And you actually are able to embody that, which is so cool to hear as well. Just like all the things you went through and taking some adversity and, challenge and alchemizing it and utilizing that to help other people and also help yourself at the same time. So, I mean, that is really cool.
Mm.
So then kind of where did once you go in, body work and all the things, kind of what was that next step for you in terms of what to do next on your journey? You learn all these things and then you're like, okay, well, now what do I do? So what was
Yes.
like that next move for you?
Well, even when I started the body work, and you have to remember this is almost 30 years ago now, it's a long time
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
Um, Even then, I was working at a health food store part time, also increasing my education about foods and supplements and this and that. And in addition to my interest in spirituality and wellness, I was also interested in the media. So I started becoming like the on air expert in different media groups and so forth, news channels and that kind of thing. And that was fun and interesting to me. And so I kind of started this parallel life of working with clients and doing the media. But when I was working with clients, I knew pretty soon that even though I was doing body work, there was something else going on in that session. And I had an ability to kind of see through my hands. And so I was helping people with medical issues. I was helping people understand themselves differently, both emotionally and physically. And not all clients were open to that, but I'd soon learn the ones who were. And over the course of the past 25 to 30 years, there's just been this progression of kind of like how our energy system is functions. It was like this progression of hands-on dense 3D body work into kind of more the mind body, into the emotional body, into the energetic body. And all the while, I was still doing media and teaching and leading workshops and that kind of thing. And now I pretty much focus on spiritual coaching, intuitive reading, soul retrieval, and I still teach and write, of course. But that's the work that I focus on with clients, is helping them have a new perspective with information that is hard for a lot of people to access for themselves, like who they are and what are they connected to kind of thing.
Yes. And I will say along my journey, I quickly learned that purpose, like soul purpose and health are directly correlated, and you literally cannot have one without the other. And
Mm.
the connecting point is your body, which always keeps the score. And so when you learn all these things and put them together, you're kind of like, why didn't I learn this sooner? Like this all makes so much sense.
Mm.
But you're right, some people just don't, they cannot access them that for themselves. And so I want to start by defining like energy medicine. What do you like, what's your philosophy on energy medicine, kind of throughout your experience of learning and also what you notice with working with people?
Yeah. Well, as we know, there's a lot of different types of energy healing now, and
So
it's
many.
so many, and it's beautiful. And also, I think people are getting cranked out of these schools and they're not ready and prepared for what energy medicine really is.
Right.
So, I guess the first thing I would say is if you're interested in energy medicine, or even if you're already working with people, we have to be the ones interviewing them. It's not, there's this concept kind of with doctors and healers and therapists and ministers and these, we put them on this pedestal like because they have this degree or the certification that they know better.
Mm,
And to me, I'm always learning from my clients, like always learning. And I feel very capable now in my maturity and my groundedness and my history to be able to hold space for pretty much anyone in the scope of working with their energy. But so let's Reiki. I actually did a podcast on Reiki. I like Reiki. I like healing touch. I like, there's so many different types of energy work. I think that the most beautiful thing about energy work is that accessibility for people who have had trauma of any sort. It can be physical, emotional, mental, verbal, what have you. And the way that I see really everything is energetic, but when we're working with the body and the mind and the emotions and working with a person who has had impact of some sort that's triggered or that's kind of frenetic, or they're maybe not fully in their body all the time, using energy is such a powerful way. It's very subtle, but it's a very powerful way to help them to feel safer, to notice different sensations where emotions are, to notice where they're holding, to notice the difference between a lower addicted kind of vibration feeling versus a soothed nurtured vibration and feeling. There's just so many components to it because we have to it's not like we're going in trying to fix something. We have to work with the body as an intuitive system and take that information of where we are and what else is possible. So, as an energy healer myself, as I said, I'm mostly holding space. I'm helping facilitate movement of energy, release of energy, sometimes activating energy. And in that, bringing attention to the client about, maybe what is the root issue underneath this energy distortion or this imbalance, or what we can do to support sustaining a different kind of energy for a longer period of time. And that's where then we get into everything. So I guess what I want to say is, like, when we're looking for a healing type person to work with, not everyone does everything. And I get that. But also, I think it is important to work with someone who has a thorough sense of all aspects, the holistic version, not just that can recommend supplements, not just somebody who wants to fix one pain, not just someone who just sees it energetically, but someone who can see the whole picture and help us create balance in our highest harmony from that.
I completely agree with that. Yes.
Mm.
I've noticed that too in this realm of, where we're at today and energy medicine. It's definitely more trendy, but it's good because it's getting the awareness that it deserves, as opposed to what you said 30 years ago you were doing this and it really was like, okay, yeah, whatever you say, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so and I've noticed too that people who lean, so I come from a background of nutrition, fitness, sport performance, and I've been able to utilize that and tie it together with energetic, spirituality, what have you. And I noticed that the people, coaches, intuitives, whatever you want to call yourself, who are too stuck in, I guess, stuck or focused on hyper focused on spirituality and solely energetics. I see also kind of where they struggle with their own health.
Mm-hmm.
And I if you don't have your health, you don't have anything, because then your focus is so much on the health that you're trying to connect with, like, how could you hold space for someone? And I love that you just said that. So let's shift gears into your book. I wanna hear about it. Kind of what brought you to this point about really focusing on toxic emotions and overcoming them.
Sure. So both of my books actually were written because I found myself repeating myself so often to every client that I was like,
Yeah.
okay, this, there's enough consensus here that this information will help many people. But I do believe that most of us are carrying toxic emotions. And when we are carrying toxic emotions, we have ill health in every other regard of our lives: physical, spiritual, mental, all the ways. And so it's, as you were just saying, like, you can't kind of be healthy one way and not the other. The same is true emotionally. When we have a emotional conflict, when we are carrying a weight of any emotion beyond its expiration date, it's going to create a vibration, a frequency, a belief, and its own operating system within us. And when it's doing that, it's like we have a different being with us. And so, and it's not hard or impossible to clear our emotions, but we have to really understand what they are. And so the hardest part is taking accountability for our own stuff.
Mm,
That's it. Like all the stuff I rattled off to you before. Yeah, we can go, oh, that must have been really hard. It was. Why did that happen? I don't know.
mm,
How did you get through it? Okay, here's kind of the how. But the truth of it is, no matter what happened, no matter what is going on, no matter who's involved, for a reason, it is ours. And we have to deal with that. That is ours to deal with. And if we don't deal with it, it will make us sick.
yeah.
So that's the reason I wrote the book, is because I think so many people are suffering unnecessarily,
Mm,
that if they can do a little work on that way, then I think that they would have a much freer experience for themselves.
mm. And what do you think are some of the best ways to start? Well, obviously acknowledging,
Mhm.
accepting, and just acknowledging that and taking accountability. What do you think would be some great ways that people could overcome these toxic emotions that bog them down and just inhibit them from moving forward?
hmm I think, well, I talk about it a lot in the book, obviously, but I talk about it in terms of like micro steps because we have this huge mentality of trying to fix stuff. And
Mm,
it's not about fixing anything. We are not broken. Sometimes we feel broken and sometimes we feel disconnected. That doesn't mean we're not connected. But that acknowledgement piece, it's easy to say, but that's what I'm saying. That's one of the hardest things to do, like acknowledging what our patterns are, acknowledging how we play victim, acknowledging where we get defensive, acknowledging where we blame people, acknowledging where we create and manifest the same opportunities, situations, circumstances for our life. Like that's all our stuff. And that's not to say that life doesn't just happen, but acknowledging how I'm taking everything so personally, acknowledging my narcissism, acknowledging my codependency, acknowledging all the ways in which I'm the one interacting with life to create the life that I'm receiving in return. And so that is a really, really big pill to swallow, you know, it just is.
yep.
It's uncomfortable. And that to me is and the second step, yes, is acceptance. But even that, it's an even huger pill to swallow. It's not just saying, oh, I accept that. It's a feeling state of really being in a state of sufficiency and harmony and acceptance and willingness of the reality as it is. And that reality is within you and not being in conflict with that. That's years of work for a person. Sometimes it's very quick.
Yeah.
So also, but then I give, steps in the book, of course, like boundaries and self-love and working on inner child. Like there's all these things that we can do to support. But if we don't get those two things down and like really in us, we're not going anywhere.
It's just a perpetuating cycle.
Yeah. And the other piece is like, there's nothing wrong with anger. Anger is not a toxic emotion. What's wrong with anger is when we, as I just, stated, like we're not accepting our anger, or we're pulling up anger from 5 years ago, or we're blaming people for our anger. But there's nothing wrong with the emotion anger itself. Like if you do something and it makes me mad, I'm going to get angry. I need to allow myself to process that anger and let it move, So that's the action part, is like, how can I be with this thing without being in judgment or conflict with it, and allow it to actually express itself so that I can move on to the next emotion? But we do the opposite of that. And that's where it becomes toxic.
We stuff it down.
Oh yeah, we repress, we like lie, we do all kinds of things, right?
So
Yes.
I wanted to share this because anger I resonate with. So I'm a two-time cancer survivor and for childhood and then again at age 20. And I was learning about when I was learning about the energetic meanings of disease and everything has an energetic definition to it. And I wrote about it in my book, actually, these 7 cancer susceptible personality traits, which really are energetic, like these emotions. And I read like deep seated anger and resentment. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I know. And and it gets really kind of like a fine line, because I think it's dangerous for us to take it to this place of like, I create all of my reality. Like I
Right.
create everything that happens to me. And this is what I mean. We have to be wise enough and mature enough to recognize when we're taking life too personally and where our involvement starts and stops, that we are the gauge of all this. Right. So I think it's unfair. Like, and I'm sorry to hear that you've had cancer 2 times. Um, maybe there is, a current of energy that's perhaps was passed down kind of through the lineage to you, or
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
right. Yeah. In a
Yeah.
way for you to cope and express that and that kind of thing. But, so the person goes, well, am I responsible for X, Y, or Z? Well, the answer is yes and no. You
Right.
are, because it's yours. And you're not, because like life does happen. If the ceiling falls in right now, I could spend all day trying to figure out what did I do to create that? Or why is this happening to me or whatever? And I think we should be reflective of, our relationship to everything. And also, the building was a poor structure.
It
Like it
happens.
fell down. Yeah. It has nothing to do with me. Right. And so we have to know how to discern, for
Mm,
ourselves. Yeah.
yeah, that's a big one. I love that.
Yeah.
And now another thing that I also see is relationships. Obviously with ourselves, but with other people. And
Mm.
you talk a lot about this. You discuss this with like toxic relationships. So practicing discernment, but how can people navigate, let's just say these where you're doing the work, right? You're working on yourself, you're doing the thing, you're doing the inner work. You're still interacting with maybe the same person or same environment, whatever it may be. How can people kind of navigate through these toxic relationships in their lives?
Well, I think it's a similar answer is that yes, there's many toxic relationships. I've been in plenty of them.
Mm,
And it's very easy for us to look outside of ourselves and find the why. The harder thing, but I think the more healing thing is to look inside of ourselves and ask why.
mm,
Why am I needing this reflection back to me? Why am I creating these scenarios that allow me to stay defensive or punishing myself or hurting or feeling unworthy? So, yes, the people are important because we do attract and manifest them to be in relation with, but usually we attract and manifest the ones that will give us what we need to see as a reflection of ourselves. And when we take the power to do that, you have,
mm.
it changes everything. It doesn't always mean that you can stay in that relationship, but you
Right.
don't want to at that point because, you're resolved with something. We only stay in that which serves us, and it's going to either serve our pain and our self punishment, or it's going to serve our love and our healing, one or the other.
Love that. Okay, so before we wrap up, what are some words of wisdom you have for the listeners?
Oh goodness, can you make it more specific? I don't know. That's a big question.
I know if you like intuitively, maybe like if, what are you kind of drawn to say to help the listeners, maybe if they are suffering with, some type of trauma, big T, little t, whatever you want to call it, what are some words of wisdom you have for them?
Well, I think what's on my mind right now that I've been teaching a lot about is this victim state,
Mm,
and releasing ourselves from the victim. Again, it's not as simple as snapping our fingers,
right.
but recognizing the choices that we have and how we create our life from those choices, and and the need that we have to either be victim or to be the hero for our own life. So I think that that's a big calling for society right now. If we don't need to be the victim, then we don't need to have a perpetrator, and then we can live in peace and harmony all around because there's nothing wrong, so
And
that's
that's a ripple effect too.
yeah, exactly. So that's a big scope of all this healing work, right? But I think it's just an interesting question maybe to ask yourself today of like, how do I feel victimized? How do I feel like this, that, the universe, him, her, whoever is hurting me or harming me, you know? So I think that I'll leave you with that. How about that?
Love it. Thank you. And Leah, where can people find you?
Well, on social media, it's at Leah the Modern Sage. And my website is just leahguy.com, LeahGuy.
Love that. Thank you so, so much for sharing your wisdom and knowledge with us.
Thanks for having me on, and thank you for the work you're doing.
Of course. Thanks. All right, guys. If you like this episode, like, share, subscribe. Don't forget to leave a review. I will put all of the information in the show notes and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.